Hi, and welcome to another episode of Horse Life. Today, myself, Bridget, and Caroline explore and evaluate the conformation of two horses. Welcome back. So before we get started and before we get into the nitty-gritty of each of these horses' conformations, we're going to have Caroline give us a little bit of history and performance background on both of these horses. So take it away.
Hi guys, so this is Jessie Jane. She is a 7-year-old mare. She's primarily used for breakaway roping and heeling, but I do use her on the ranch and for trail rides. And then we go over here, and this is Mojo. He is a ranch horse and a head horse, and he is 10 years old.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to start and make some observations with Jessie Jane. And what we really want to focus on with her is her neck. So, Caroline, do you want to talk a little bit about how her neck could show some improvements?
Yeah, so for me, you look at the muscling, obviously, but you also look at how the neck ties in. So quite often you have some horses where the neck ties in low and it'll come quite low down to the point of the shoulder, or sometimes you'll have it tying in up higher. So for her, I like where it's tying in, but for her, I would like to see a little bit more muscling through the middle of this neck as it develops into the shoulder.
See, that's such a cool point that Caroline brings up, because I'm like guilty for just looking at like musculature, like is it developed, what's the tone like, how does it feel, and I sometimes overlook like where the neck ties in and how biomechanically, obviously the angle of where the neck ties in and actually, you know, meets with the shoulder has a role in the torque, in the kinetic energy, in the movement of that forelimb. So I love that you're bringing in this like biomechanic perspective on conformation. I also think, and I'm sure you'd agree, that we work with a lot of horses that tend to have less mid-cervical neck development. So that just means that like this middle portion of the neck can be a little bit more hollowed out, and we usually see more development kind of along the base of the neck or at the top of the neck. And I think one of the reasons for that is kind of in the mid-neck, that's where the vertebrae sit and where all the deep neck muscles sit. So in order for those muscles to be contracted and in order to strengthen and really develop them, they really need to be in a proper mechanical frame. You know, they can't have their head in the air like a llama. They also can't be dragging their nose on the ground like a peanut pusher. So it's really interesting to note like that, that we see this in a lot of different horses that we work with.
Yeah.
So that was one kind of lemon. Where can we make some lemonade with Jessie?
So for some lemonade for Jessie, while she doesn't have a whole lot of muscling developing into her shoulder, she has quite a nice angle on her shoulder. So when we're looking at shoulder angle, we're looking at the shoulder blade or the scapula blade. And essentially we're looking at the angle that it comes down, and then we're lining it up with the angle of her pastern.
And you want those angles to be the same?
Yes, as much as possible.
Right. So, and I'd imagine that the more similar this angle is with the angle of her pastern, the easier, the more fluid that forelimb motion will be.
Yes, so the more similar the angles, they'll move together. If you have your pastern angle, or you have a really long pastern and it's kind of on a downward slope, you're going to experience a different amount of concussive forces onto the joints, ligaments, and tendons.
And she has a stellar angle. Do you find most of the time when you work with horses that their shoulder angle is a little bit off, or their pastern angle is a little bit off, or is it a combination of both that are not quite, you know, similar?
I find more, like, yes, we're looking at angle and conformation. I find more, you notice the muscling first, and you notice imbalances in the muscling that lead you to suspect that the angle is off or the pastern angle is off, which is why their muscles are working differently.
Right, yeah, totally. And I get something else is, I mean, obviously we're just filming from this right side here, but she has very even shoulders from side to side too. So not only is her angle friggin' fabulous, but the development of her triceps, of her biceps, of her deltoids are quite even, and I'm excited for this muscle development to reach the same level as the shoulder.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, now we're going to take a look at another horse. As Caroline said, this is Mojo. And I guess we'll start with the lemons first, but I'll be honest, when we were discussing before we were filming this video, it was kind of hard to find a lemon with him. Like, he's just so well built, and his muscles feel really even and really soft from side to side, and I'm just super impressed with that. So, sorry, please excuse my dog whining in the background. Apparently he hates talking about horse conformation, so there's that. But the one thing that we did notice with him, and I think the reason why we wanted to bring this up is that we hear a lot of this feedback from our clients too, is his long back.
Yeah.
So maybe do you want to like share a little bit of information about the long back and maybe the anatomy behind it too?
So when you take into consider a horse's, I guess, proportions, you're supposed to divide it into three. So the first third would be here. You divide it right in front of the forelimb, and then you'd have the torso or the trunk range, and you divide it here again. So for him, if you take a look, he has a fair, like, it's not awful, but it's a little bit longer than his front and his hind portions. And for me, as his rider, I notice quite often I get a lot of sensitivity through this lumbar region. And especially as a head horse, they need to explode fast out of the box, and it's a lot of sprinting essentially. And all that comes from this region and his hind end. So if he does not have the core to support his back is going to get quite weak, especially being a little bit longer. And you're going to get this soreness through this lumbar region. And eventually he's going to start to create some imbalances in his muscling to try and compensate for that soreness in his lumbar.
Yeah, totally. That's so huge, because obviously we talk a lot about how power comes from the hind end, and that power, the first place that all that energy goes through is that lumbar portion of the spine, the lower part of the back. So if, like, let's say you know, like in a day you've come out of the gate like 6 times or something, that's a lot of energy that's coming through in an area that is already conformationally could be a little bit of a weaker area. So it's something to really keep in mind. And it's amazing because, well, Mojo has an amazing massage plan, but to really work on that tissue, because if you don't, those compensatory mechanisms can easily trickle its way in. The good thing with Mojo is that he has such a strong hind end. And that's our favorite thing. I know, honey, we want to talk about your hind end too, right? It's nice. I really like it too. Come on. But that was our favorite thing with Mojo. I mean, lots of favorites, but was his glutes and his hamstrings. They feel really even. And I think that's what enables him to have so much power as well. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how you develop his hind end, or how you've been working on that as a rider?
Honestly, I don't work on developing his hind end very much. He's always had a big butt. He's always been peachy.
Yep.
I work on a lot of collection work, and naturally when you get collection work, you're driving the hind end underneath him, which does activate those gluteal muscles and the hamstrings. But I really focus on any exercises that can support his core.
Right.
So anything that will prevent that soreness through the lumbar region, through his back muscles. Usually when I do go roping, we probably rope 20 to 30 steers each time. So that's 20 to 30 times you're getting that explosive force out of the box. And if he doesn't have enough strength to support himself, we're not going to be doing very good. See, I said 6 times, and I was like, I feel like she does more than that, but I'm just going to be conservative because I don't know, because,
But yeah, I think that's such a good point too, because it's like you also see the other end of it where folks focus too much on developing that hind end, because that is where all the power comes from. But then you get those tight hamstrings that are super big, super rock hard, and then they end up, you start seeing them like, okay, they're feeling good, they have great hind end range of motion, they're really bringing their hind end underneath themselves, but then you start seeing a little shortened protraction, retraction, because those hind limbs are so tight.
Yeah.
And so I like that you, instead of focusing on that muscle, you focus on the core that inherently affects, you know, the
whole
entire
body.
spine, the whole
Yeah.
body. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, that was really fun talking with you about horses. Usually we're not at the same barn at the same time, but we love talking about conformation and musculature. We're a little bit too enthusiastic about it, but we did just want to finish off and say that we really do believe that every horse, even two roping horses that are used in the same sport, have different musculature and have different conformations. So if you're interested in talking further about your horse's conformation and how that might affect their musculature and what you can do as a rider to help your horse feel their best and move their best, as you know, when looking at the perspective of their individualized body and movements, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. That's one of our main areas of focus when we work with our horses. So be sure to book with us this summer. We'd love to talk further about it. And if you're new to horse life, check out our other episodes and please subscribe at the link below. Thank you.